I wish good things to you who's watching this. I am Alexey. We're about to watch the second semifinals of the 2025 Belgian Carcassonne Online Championships, and with me today is former Belgian national champion Nicholas Victor, also known by his board game arena screen name Gina. Hi, Nicholas.
Hi, Alexey. How are you?
Can't complain. Thank you for agreeing to do this. You will be valuable for offering insights about the players because, as far as I know, you've known them for years. You've participated in this tournament yourself many times with a lot of success. Well, maybe except for this year, but generally with a lot of success. Fabian Mouton and Tom de Smedt with the screen name Nicedicer, I hope I didn't butcher the pronunciations too much, are both expert players, of course, with peak ratings in their upper 600s. In your experience, would you say that one of them has an edge over the other? What would be your predictions today? Do you have any personal sympathies between these two players? Could you talk more about them a little bit?
Well, I think Tom has the more experience because he was already second and third on the live finals, on the live Belgian Championship. Fabian is quite new to the championship with not a real result yet. Who is a better play? Yeah, good question. Tom surprised us a couple of years ago when he played the final against me in 2022. And he has been a solid, strong player since. Fabian is a fantastic player, but he needs to control his nerves. So if he can control this, it could be a very interesting game.
It's an interesting thing about you mentioned, because like when it comes to Carcassonne knowledge, I've actually seen Fabian more, and between the two players, he learned the game later and joined the Belgian Carcassonne community later than Nicedicer, but has been progressing at a really fast pace, and even at the moment, he's outrating his opponents. Not outscoring, though, in this game. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, very curious to see if he's going to have that consistency that you mentioned. So the game has started a couple of moves ago, already quite a rough position. Reds, that is Nicedicer, has a few points extra on the scoreboard, but a bunch of meeples which are blocked or close to blocked. There are only two starting tiles remaining because two of them are on the board, and Red needs them in several locations. He needs one over here, and he needs one over here for his road and monastery, here for the city. And there are still options for Red to maybe go over here with a straight line, block this square completely. I mean, options for Yellow to go over here with a straight line, block the square completely, maybe add a couple of tiles over here, block this completely, and then try and use the meeple majority to just suppress any possible revolts from the player with the red meeples. Well, one of such things is prevented as a curve is placed over here. Now, Red makes sure that there are still two tiles remaining that fit into the square, that this is no longer blockable. Of course, 25% of the time, Yellow will be drawing both of the tiles and denying Red's three meeples, but 75% of the time, Yellow will not be doing that. And in fact, Red is now preparing a starting tile to go over here, and then not only will be able to prolong his road and finish his city and get a meeple back, but he'll also be able to drop a 9-point farmer over here with tempo, with potential expansion. So I would expect Fabian to anticipate that soon and maybe drop a farmer off his own, for example, by completing his road. Fabian now gets monastery, starts a new one in one of the possible locations. The other one was over here. He didn't like the choice on the left because this square would have been already slightly obstructed. And Nicedicer now with a very interesting move tries to obstruct Fabian's road, but is unsuccessful as immediately a dagger is drawn by Yellow. He now finishes the road, gets the lead on the scoreboard again, starts a new city, and is looking to get a couple of Dorito tiles to get himself a 14-point city or something like that. So A curve is now in Nicedicer's possession. He still has 3 meeples and now has a decision to make. Is it already time to drop farmers? And no or yes? Not yet, he decides. I'm a bit curious about that decision over here because this field could have potential, but it seems to me that Red really wants to finish the city first and then drop a farmer. This move kind of obstructs Fabian's city a little bit. Fabian responds in kind by adding this annoying tile over here next to Red, making it much harder for him to complete his city. In fact, he would have done so with this dagger tile, but he can't because it no longer fits here. But there is also some potential still for Red to draw a bunch of tiles like this and build up a big city. Red now is starting a new city at the top, harassing Fabian's city a little bit. Fabian covers up, Red gets himself back a city, and now renews his lead on the scoreboard. Straight line for Fabian, and now is the time for a 9-point field. So Tom might regret not dropping a farmer over here. And as Nicedicer thinks where to place this dagger tile, I just wanted to ask you, Nicholas, so in your experience with these players, do they tend to drop farmers early, or do they try to delay this as in this game? So is this something typical that you would expect?
It is something that I never really noticed with these players. I don't think they're fast farmers. I think they're quite fast players and easy meeplers, but fast farmers? Yeah, good question. Well, like you noticed, Tom didn't do it yet, and so I presume that farm playing is not his style of play.
Well, yeah, so like the rule of thumb in Carcassonne is typically that if there are 3 completed cities, then you have to drop a farmer. And they're kind of obeying this sort of rule by the book. So Fabian waited until there are 3 cities and dropped a farmer. But very often in competitive play, and in many countries, for example, in like Spanish or Portuguese speaking countries, for the most part, farmers come down really, really early with even 2 or even just 1 completed cities, as long as there is a potential for expansion. And look at Fabian now. He's trying to anticipate Tom going over here and dropping a farmer, because I assume that Tom delayed a farmer with the idea that, let's say, if yellow draws a farmer here, then red can drop a farmer here to equalize, but red decides to take a stronghold on the field and drop 2 farmers and eventually just build up and try and crush red with field points. So it looks like a very straightforward plan. Let's see how Tom responds to that.
I think Tom was quite scared to have another meeple locked next to his other 3 meeples, being in a precarious situation there. So I think he wanted some meeples to play with, and that was his choice, not to meeple the field.
But now we'll be very curious to see if he's going to change his mind or not, because there are several approaches possible how to play against 2 farmers. Approach number 1 is you actually drop 2 farmers of yourself, one of this side, one of this side, and then spend 4 tiles, but eventually equalize the farm and keep the game even, especially since they're even on the scoreboard. And approach number 2 is you play an imbalance. You allow your opponent to build a farm as long as they're spending 2 but not 1 meeples on it, and then you hope or you take measures to make sure that this field does not develop out of control, that it maybe still stays under 18 points or something, and then you try and use your temporary meeple majority to score somewhere else. But as for temporary meeple majority, there is going to be a problem, as these 3 meeples are still stuck, and Fabian just drew one of the 2 starting tiles that Nicedicer needs in 2 places. So now we know that at the very least this road is not going to survive because it needs the starting tile in 2 places, and in all likelihood this monastery either. So even if Tom draws the last remaining starting tile, he's probably going to go over here to get an immediate meeple back here from the city. Both players exchange some natural move. Tom's city at the bottom is further obstructed. Nicedicer with a monastery here, and surprisingly no good move, not even a way to score 2 points or something. He could go over here and maybe pre-build or even meeple a potential 4-point road, given the fact that there's still 4 crossroads remaining that would complete that road. And moreover, these crossroads would unite the 2 farms, making sure that there's no double scoring for yellow. But such a move would give more green squares to yellow, which is why Nicedicer opts against it, simply tries to use the monastery as a blocking tile for lack of a better move. And it does have some value indeed, because Fabian's monastery technically is still live. He could build it up over here and get himself a meeple back. So red is trying to block some meeples from yellow. Red now also trying to build up his city on the left by placing the splitter over here. Yellow, of course, trying to block, draws one of the Dorito tiles that were needed by yellow, but yellow can... Wait. Yellow draws Dorito tiles that were needed by red. Red defends in a way that still allows 2 Doritos over here, so a 75% chance of completing that square. And the only thing that he needs to draw now is just 1 more city cap over here that would cover up that city, and then his position should be overall fine, because he got the 2 road points. He managed to block the square over here. But Fabian now with a very annoying move, starting a city on the right, also breaking down this square of red city, which I believe is also completely blocked. Let me just double check real quick, and I think all 6 daggers have gone out. So this means that not only this meeple is blocked completely, but also this meeple is actually super dangerous. Fabian is 1 tile away from blocking this city completely, which is something that I believe he should do. Instead, he goes for the 2 points, maybe doesn't notice that idea, but Nicedicer now manages to cover up his city, which I'm pretty sure he'll do. So that's going to be a big, big tactical miss by Fabian. A 75% chance of finishing a 12-point city is no joke. These blocks are a bit harder to see, because this city is not directly part of Red City, but it will be part of Red City after a Dorito tile is placed over here. So Tom, 10 points down on the scoreboard, down on meeples quite a bit, but really hoping to draw this tile here soon. Gets a monastery which he can't really use. Maybe going over here for 0 points is technically an option. Let's see what he chooses. And also, I've noticed some interesting... actually, I didn't notice anything. I wanted to ask you, Nicholas. So, did you notice how these players treat seemingly useless tiles? Do they just discard them, or do they really try hard and find some sort of move that marginally improves their position?
Normally they do. I have the impression they don't at this moment, because they're playing quite fast. I'm quite used to how they play slower, and especially Fabian, if he takes his time to think, he tends to use his throwaway tiles more carefully. Also, I learned from Fabian. That's a good move. Yeah, I learned that Fabian had. He went on college with Dan Chart, so they had a lot of games playing each other. So took his lessons there.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to learn Carcassonne from the author of the book of Carcassonne, you're bound to learn something. And one thing that Yellow has learned is drawing all the starting tiles, because this one was the last starting tile available for Nicedicer. Now he will not be finishing the city, so the thing that happens 25% of the time does happen indeed today. Although the earlier tactical miss from Fabian does cost him some points, because Nicedicer was able to successfully finish his city, which we were also talking about earlier. When it comes to farmers, of course, quite a sad situation for the player with the red meeples. He does have a 9-point farm at the bottom, but Fabian has a 9-point farm right over here to equalize it. And on top of that, this farmer here is also scoring 9 points and even has chance to score 12 points if he manages to expand his field, and there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 straight lines remaining to do so, so quite a good chance. I wonder if Fabian now chooses to actually go over here and protect that square to allow himself to still draw a straight line and get this extra city in his field, or maybe he'll do something more direct, such as simply getting himself 1 monastery point. Instead, he decides to meeple a 5-point long road, which also makes sense, although it does immediately get blocked because there's nothing that fits into this square, but the other end of the road is still technically open, so he can build this up. In the meantime, on the other side of the board, Fabian does draw one of the straight lines, so he brings the value of his city up to 12 points. Now a curve for Nicedicer, and really not of options here. So probably we will be seeing... Wait, actually not necessarily. You know what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. Actually, I think we saw just a mistake from Nicedicer that cost him a lot of points. This tile over here, why the rush of blocking this square? And you mentioned, Nicholas, that normally they take their time, but now they're playing a bit faster, even though the time control allows for more deliberate moves. Because this tile could have just gone over here. Not only would have it equalized red's 2-point city with yellow's 6-point city, making it a net 4-point move, it would also open a faint but existent chance to win the game, because this city would have an invasion platform, and Nicedicer could draw a city cap, get a meeple over here, then he could draw a Dorito with the road, and then unify all these cities, get a 2 versus 1 majority, and get 20 points on the scoreboard. This tile, for example, it's something that he could have drawn. Sadly, it seems to be a bit of a miss. Maybe he just tunneled a little bit on that square simply because this is where Fabian just had played, and so your attention naturally is drawn there. But maybe these could be just nerves, something that you said, although you said that about Fabian rather than Tom. But based on the timing tell, would Tom be the type of player that goes on tilt often, or is that something that is not characteristic of him?
That's not characteristic of he's somebody who's easy and who's joking around and doesn't seem to be nervous all the time. So I also wondered why, well, should he gone for the field attack up north? Field of 12 points?
At some point, probably, yeah, but I don't think with this tile it was possible anymore because it was the last crossroads, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, it was. So this connection is actually no longer possible. So what he wishes to have done is drawn a road tile first and then that crossroads later. He can still go for the attack for the farm, I think, if there happens to be a city tile plus a curve or something like this. I didn't count quite accurately. Or maybe just going over here and then over here like this. I think this might be the field attack that you were suggesting from the top right corner. But yeah, he doesn't get...
He could have done that with the cow tile as well, because there were 2 curves behind.
He could have... Indeed, but he kind of figured that maybe he can't win this game, but this was not true. That's the thing, and that's why I was asking about the tilt, because with this move over here, he could have set himself up to a winning position, and he actually did manage to draw all the winning tiles. So look at this. He got this, which he could have used to connect. Then he got this tile, which he could have used to invade the city. Then he got this tile, which he could have used to connect to complete the invasion, and then he got this tile as well, which he could have used to complete the city. So even though the tile draws look kind of rough for Tom here, given the fact that Fabian drew all the starting tiles, but there were still chances even in this seemingly desperate situation. And it seems to me that maybe in different circumstances or in a casual game or after just a couple of minutes or deliberations, Tom was fully capable of finding that.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm not sure what's happening with Tom.
And let's see if they manage to recover in their second game. A reminder to everybody that this is a best-of-3 format, as most contemporary competitive Carcassonne tournaments are. In the meantime, hi Nico, hi Matt, hi Elias, hi Nalaheim. I see that Matt is rooting for Fabian. Let us know if there's anybody who's rooting for Tom, because Tom does appear to need support at the moment.
I must say, when you watch the recap the result of Tom, he's somebody who always gets in the back of, gets 1-0 down and then comes back to 2-1. So he's definitely a player who can recover.
No, that we shall see. Also, we know that they will have the advantage of being the starting player in the next game, so that gives also them a few percentage points in order to try and win. Hi Napalmai. Napalmai is saying, I totally agree with Red's cow placement, referring to this move over here, as it protects it from the possibility that yellow would join all the fields together. So this was the purpose, of course. It was not just to block this road, but also to block this square. But then I wonder if unifying all the fields is such a bad thing, because it will be only a 2 versus 1 majority, and Reds could still attack that field later on if he absolutely has to. And there were still options to block that square a little bit later, perhaps. But yes, this would have indeed been the problem. But the main issue is that after this move, you just don't have any winning ideas if you are Red, whereas if you go over here, at least there's a clear winning idea that with the right tiles, you are getting those 22 points in a meeple back, and this probably is going to be enough. And if you get the city cap early enough, then maybe you even have time to equalize the farm as well, if you absolutely have to. So tactically, this move makes a lot of sense. My criticism about this move is mostly due to its long-term potential, or lack thereof, rather. So Fabian will win this with a bunch of monasteries and the extra 12 points on the field. The scoreboard difference is not actually that big. Okay, it is pretty big.
It is great.
It's just 20 points, yeah. So this means that this city and then something else would have been needed by Nicedicer. But anyway, in Carcassonne, anything can happen. Lost one game, ain't no big deal. Just gotta win the next one in order to stay alive. And the next game has already started. The time format is my favorite time format. 22.5 minutes per player, no increment. So this really gives enough time to solve all endgames and think about all the tricky situations. And also, by the way, even though, Nicholas, you said that they were playing pretty fast, Nicedicer did spend close to 15 minutes on his first game anyway. Now, the second game was abandoned. This is simply due to the settings being wrong. It's a bit of a tricky thing with Board Game Arena. The reason for that is they had the wrong starting player. Nicedicer needs to be the starting player in this game. Let's see if that is the case.
No, it isn't.
Nope. So they need to cancel this game again.
Is that the third or the fourth one? The fourth one. So they have to go along with it.
Really?
Because we only set up five game tournaments. So if you're in the fourth one, you need to play the fourth one, so to be able to play the fifth one as well.
Well, this actually is extremely unpleasant for Tom or his fans, because not only does Fabian get to go first again, but he also is starting with the best possible tile in Carcassonne that sets him up as an 8-point city. Thomas, of course, is trying to block up here a little bit, but Fabian will be completing his 8-point city and also meepling a 3-point road in the process, which he doubted for a couple of seconds, but then in case it gets restricted, there's still multiple crossroads available, so that ain't no big deal. And 10-0, and Tom already finds himself in an early hole. Will need to really work to do something about it.
We're definitely going to have a new Belgian champion because, well, I dropped out. Carr got eliminated in the group stage, and Nico was beaten as well. So whoever wins will be playing final against Raf, and that will be definitely a new champion.
Yes. The question is, will we have a new vice champion or not? So that's a title that Raf has many times. So very curious to see how the final goes. The final will be at some point next week, date later to be determined, but we will be covering that for sure. Okay, and you see, yeah, Nicedicer is saying in the chat, it's gonna be one of those evenings. I think he could be on tilt a little bit, even though like, his position is not that bad. Okay, down 14 points on the scoreboard, but he has this road, he has this city. If he finishes the city, then these will be 14 more points for Red, which is enough to equalize, and he's one tile away from completing his city, but Fabian gets the invasion. And Nicedicer is quiet. Does this mean that he has a splitter in hand? Because if Fabian goes here, if Nicedicer has a splitter, then nope, he doesn't. But still, like, it's really not such a bad position at all. It's a slight disadvantage. Like, it's absolutely playable. And one of the main reasons why it's absolutely playable is because neither side has drawn a monastery. And there's a juicy 6-point spot. There are options to stack. Gets quite easy 20-something points from monasteries and road with just 5 or 6 tiles. So the board is quite wet and allows for a lot of options. Now, Tom is thinking about this one. I think he realizes that his position is not that bad after all. He decides to take 2 points, but it was not his only option. Could have continued his city at the top, put pressure against the square. He could also have gone over here and tried to block Fabian's road, but decided that he's far enough on the scoreboard that he can't afford to be blocking. He just needs to catch up on them points. Now, there are 2 ways of doing so. There's the quiet move of just going over here, continuing his city and obstructing Yellow's city a little bit. But there's the more aggressive move of prolonging his road, going over here, and meepling this year's city, trying to draw a triple city and 2 city caps to try and win a big city for himself. Fabian gets himself a bit of an unusual move, not sure what that's about. That seems to be a bit too high variance to my taste. As Fabian, I would have just preferred a reinvasion, and Nicedicer now should meeple the monastery. He's thinking about this, but it's a clear meepling of the monastery. It gets completed so often, and he's not afraid to do that. Now it looks like he's really collected himself. Of course, this square is being restricted, but there's still 3 tiles that fit here. There are still 3 tiles that fit here. So these are some excellent probabilities. Sadly, Tom decides not to meeple a second monastery, and I think he did not notice that whilst trying to attack Yellow's road, he exposes a blocking platform against what's going to become his own city. Of course, going over here for 5 points was just incomparably stronger, and again, this is one of those moves that he just did in a couple of seconds. Whenever he thinks for a little bit longer, he actually is making good moves. But as soon as you have this accidental blitz, then we have some issues there. So Fabian now, with one of the tiles that Tom needs over here, is probably looking to not do much, really. There's not at all much that he can do. Maybe going over here is not such a bad idea, trying to break this square. But instead he decides to harass Nicedicer's road a little bit and also kill off a monastery spot that wasn't used by Red before, but still could be used by Red later. Fabian with a Dorito tile. Not obvious places where to use it. Given his 10-point lead on the scoreboard, he actually might be tempted to just go over here and equalize all the cities in case Red does get a lucky run out with these 4 spots over here, but he decides that there will be plenty of time to do that and instead start a new city on the left. Tom decides to go for a farmer, and now we realize what we were saving the meeples for. So you mentioned, Nicholas, that they don't tend to drop farmers early. Well, this is a counterexample. And it, of course, has the added effect of blocking this square, or at least restricting it, but Fabian finds a nice defense. He scores 4 points and also gives himself a 75% chance of going over here and over here and getting a starting tile and finishing a 6-point road and a 4-point city, but not anymore, as Tom is drawing the starting tiles that he wishes he would have drawn in the previous game. Fabian now defends his city at the top, chooses quite sheepishly not to meeple the monastery. Well, maybe that's because his last name suggests that.
Sure does.
Or maybe because he just wants to save the meeples for the field fight. Hi, Glavier.
He's in a meeple advantage, so I wondered why he didn't go for it. And there's still 3 daggers in there, so...
Maybe he was concerned about this square being blocked towards an umbrella tile, because there's only 1 of those remaining. But with 3 daggers, I think this still would have been strong, and with 3 meeples remaining. So a bit of an unnecessary timidity on the part of both players, because monasteries can be very powerful, especially early in the game. We're not that early in the game, but there's still a lot of tile that can be used to build up the monasteries. There's loads of city caps, loads of road, and these monastery points can get easily completed. Fabian, with a curve, now is going to decide whether it's time for him to invade the field, and this is exactly what he does. He still gives himself a 50-50 shot at the last starting tile, which would complete his 6-point road and a 4-point city. So 10 points and a meeple back is the threat. So now Tom really is hoping that he draws the starting tile simply to deny this option for Fabian. Reds now decides to obstruct this square, which seems to be a bit misplaced, because what it really does, it just protects the square. There are still 3 tiles that fit into the square, and this is really, really a lot. But now Fabian gets the starting tile, and with that, the position for Tom becomes really, really difficult. It's not impossible. There are still some routes to win the game. A bit harder now as his city at the top gets invaded, but he can get a new 8-point city for himself. And let's see if he chooses to do that or chooses to do something else. But instead he goes for another city, which actually also makes a lot of sense. If he gets a couple of dagger tiles, all 3 of which are remaining in the deck, he can actually hope for a quick city completion. And Fabian doesn't seem to care. As Fabian, when you're in the lead, you really want to be blocking the square, but he wants to score a little bit first. Nicedicer will now be thinking whether he wants to defend it or not. I might not even bother, to be honest, because, like, if your opponent doesn't block you, then why defend? But he's thinking about it. If you go over here, that exposes a blocking, an attacking platform against his city, but it also makes sure that this square is now unblockable. So I'm wondering here, Victor, if you... Oh, Nicholas, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
I would be considering attacking the field. I would have done that already with straight before.
With a, from which side? Are you thinking from the left
From
somewhere?
The east side from the church, with the outer curve.
Ah, through the outer curve, taking advantage of the fact that 2 of the crossroad tiles are still remaining. Certainly that's a move. We can see that Nicedicer doesn't seem to care about the completion of his city. He just wants to preserve the ruin points, and he just cares about obstructing Fabian's city a little bit. Of course, he's now trying to obstruct Yellow's other city, which is an important thing to do. But yeah, that idea I think we can do that still later if we get ourselves a crossroads, because then we get to implement your idea, drop a farmer, and then with the curve we get to not only connect to the field and reclaim the leadership on the 12-point farm, but we also get to score a 6-point road in the process and get to meeple back instantly. So maybe this is something that Tom may be planning here long term.
But if he did it from the inside, then when Fabian prolongs his city or finishes his city with the dagger, it automatically takes the farmer in.
Oh, actually, that was a nice suggestion from Aaron in the chat that, yeah, he could just attack the farmer through the dagger. So defend the square and attack the farmer like this. But we see now that red has no intention of finishing this city whatsoever, and Fabian draws one of the daggers anyway to get himself a 30-something point lead on the scoreboard. So now I think as Nicedicer, when you're really 34 points behind, then the city really becomes your only chance. And it has to be not just city, but city plus farm. So we hope that we get both daggers, and when for the rest of the game we just build, hope our opponent does not invade, get like 40 points for the city, a majority on the farm, and then win by 5 points or something like this. But the question is, do we start building up the city now, or do we invade the field first? For example, there's a spot over here through one of the 2 remaining curves. So what is the priority that you prefer, Nicholas?
Is there a way to invade? That was my idea. To invade the field over there. I would have done that at the moment. Yeah.
And
I think the city will be ruined and ruin points, and he's counting on that. Not to finish it, and gamble on the field, make it as big as possible.
And he's indeed trying to do that, and he's even drawing one more farmer. Fabian, of course, draws one of the curves, blocks Red's monastery, but there's still a curve available to score 3 points over here for Red, and of course complete the invasion of what's going to be a 21-point farm. That's already kind of respectable. Of course, that's not going to be enough because Fabian has had 37 points. But wait a second, this ruin is around 15. The monastery is 7. And if Fabian does not invest his meeples properly, then it is quite possible that Red might win. So in order for Red to win, of course, Yellow would have to start making mistakes. But unfortunately, for Tom, this is not what happens. This was actually a very strong move from Fabian, who adds himself 2 points, does not spend any meeples superfluously. Instead, he just goes for the monastery to try and outrun any potential fields from Nicedicer. And he also now scores quick points, which should put them over the edge. And he still preserved the chance of drawing some dagger tiles. If I believe there's still one of those remaining even after this move. And then he could draw the last Dorito tile. No, that would not be possible because this was the last Dorito tile. But there, at least at the time of the move, this guy was still there, so this city could have technically been completed. Now, of course, it's trapped because there's nothing that fits into the square, which actually allows Nicedicer to go over here if he so chooses and score 3 points. Fabian will be extremely happy to go over here and clean off an empty city cap and unify all the fields for Nicedicer. He doesn't care if he's gonna lose the field with like a 3-1 majority. 3-1 majority. You can score extra points for a farm if you have more meeples on it. Of course, you get the points if you have more meeples than your opponent, but 2 meeples, 3 meeples, it does not matter at all. So Nicholas, it seems that you were calculating something. Were these the points or the remaining tiles?
Yeah, I was counting the points when if the fields got connected, Nicedicer is scoring about 40 points. So he's 40 points up then on the board. If the fields are connected, of course.
Even if the fields are connected.
Yeah. So that's simply not enough. I think Tom lost believing in the game already quite early in this game.
Yeah, which seemed to be a bit unnecessary because like 14 points, like 14 points on the scoreboard is really not a big deal. For example, yesterday. Now this will be not yesterday, but yeah, it was yesterday. Oh wow, because today's Saturday, yeah. So I will just keep bringing up this example forever because we saw a match of the Champions League between the Japanese master Koki Yamaguchi and the 2023 world champion Matt Tucker, and Koki was losing 35-0, and he still kept fighting so hard, and even until the end of the game preserved himself mathematical chances of winning if he were to draw the right tiles. I think like 5 tiles before the end, his winning chances were still 3%, which is actually still amazing. But it does require a lot of energy in order to do that. It requires a lot of calculation. It requires extremely deep knowledge. And also it requires very calm nerves because it seems to me that it's that first game that has already seeped into Nicedicer's mindset. You know, the inability to draw one of the 2 starting tiles certainly must have been a little bit annoying. He's still now adding, of course, points to his field, trying to grow a little bit, and he even gets to unify those fields, so that's something.
And he wasn't actually not that far behind. So he scored a couple of points here and there. He might have get a third game out of it.
Maybe, yeah, because there were some coin flips available. For example, this 5-point road, if red were to draw this tile, then it's already a 10-point flip, because then yellow doesn't get the 5 points, but red gets the 5 points. What else? This city was actually quite fortunate. It was close to being blocked, but red managed to eke it out just in time. And respect for red for playing precisely, blocking Fabian's city over here as he was preparing to get himself even more points for a completely obscene score, but a 2-point city and 2 points for the final monasteries will be enough for Fabian Mouton for the first time to reach the finals of the Belgian Carcassonne Online Championships, where he will be playing against none other than Raf Mesotten, who is known as CraftyRaf.
He's also the first French-speaking player in the final.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And actually, I generally noticed that there's a lot of imbalance, that most Belgian, at least before now, like most of the members of the Belgian team were from the Dutch-speaking part of the country, except for Moby Dick, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So yeah, now there's going to be a bit more balance. And there is even probably like a 50% chance of there being the first ever French-speaking champion in Belgium. You never know.
You know, it will be an interesting game.
Or 2 of those at the very least. Well, a bit unfortunate that we got only 2 games out of this evening. Actually, both semifinals were kind of one-sided. As you can see, yesterday, CraftyRaf managed to also get some nice draws against Karkaroff 9 and really win 2-0 without particular difficulties. And as Fabian saying in the chat, today was absolutely his evening. 2-0 for Fabian, and a very short 45-minute stream today.
Mm-hmm.
So, I join, of course, with my congratulations to Fabian, as y'all are saying in the chat. Just wanted to ask you, Nicholas, before we leave, what are your predictions for the final?
Well, they're both 2 nervous players, but very tactical players. I think the champion will be the one who can maintain his nerves as long as possible.
Oh, that would be so curious, because nervous players are more fun to watch because we can expect maybe some time trouble, some exchange of blunders which they would not make in casual games. So maybe I hope for like a very high level match, but with one or two egregious blunders, maybe one per side. This would be super fun.
And Raf is also a thinker, so he will be playing slow, and Fabian has the thing of adapting to the other player, so he will be playing slow as well.
Yes, and and the timing of the finals we will find out soon enough. I will keep you posted on this channel. If you want to view the finals or other type of competitive Carcassonne content, which is coming up a lot in the next few weeks or a couple of months, really, then make sure to subscribe and click the bell notification icon. If you liked anything about the stream, make sure to meeple the like button for the algorithm. It makes an impact more than y'all might think. And
there's something else I want to say.
Yeah.
And like Nico mentioned, both players are qualified for our national team now as well, as we qualify to the Belgium Championship.
Oh, so now do you give the spot for both the finalists or all the top four?
Top three, I think.
Top three. Oh, right, yeah. I was assuming that it was just the champion, but top three makes definitely more sense.
So there's something more interesting in the third place game as well.
That's true. We might also check the timing of that, actually. But anyway, still stay tuned for all that. Thank you, Nicholas, so much for joining with your intel.
Yeah, I was happy to be here.
And thank you all so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you soon.